There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac, and welcome back to my channel. Here I am with a book review of Cora Sandel's 1926 novel, translated in from the Norwegian in 1962, Alberta and Jacob. I read this for Women in Translation Month, last month, I believe, whenever that was. In fact, it took me longer, so I just finished it a couple weeks ago and absolutely loved it. The first thing to say is that this is the first in a trilogy of novels by Cora Sandel. So Alberta and Jacob is a coming-of-age novel, heavily autobiographical, based on Cora Sandel's own life. And Alberta Selmer it's hard to know until you get quite a ways into it how old she is. I would say, like most fiction about women, I've really noticed this recently, the protagonists always seem younger than they actually are. So it took me several chapters to realize that Alberta Selmer is actually about 19 or 20. And she lives in a seaside town in northern Norway, which apparently is the not cool part of Norway to live in. The family has relatives in the south, and boy, the regionalism is really strong, and the judgments against people from the north and whatnot is a big part of the novel. Let me read you a couple chapters. I think I read them on one of my Women in Translation vlogs, but who cares about that? Not many people watch vlogs. I want to share you just a couple passages from the opening pages, which really set the tone for a young Alberta Selmer's life and how cold it is on every imaginable level. When Alberta woke up in the morning, she was always warm. It was the only time of day when she was not cold. Her limbs were snug and relaxed, physically at peace. Nothing could be better. She would lie full length, her legs straight out. The whole bed was warm, and her body felt as if it had uncurled, as if a shell surrounding it had been broken. She stretched herself, feeling agile and supple, able to treat her warmth lightly. Sometimes in her arrogance, she would stick one foot out into the cold, simply in order to feel it warming up again as soon as she drew it back. At night, she would lie huddled and trembling beneath the blanket for hours, chilled to the marrow. She made herself as small as she could, drawing her legs up under her and hugging herself. The cold would sit between her shoulder blades, gnawing like pain. She carried it in her body all day, and it had accompanied her to bed. Her feet, like blocks of ice, seemed not to belong to her, and she became cramped and sore from her huddled position. After a while, she would fall into a kind of waking doze. Her body slept, ice cold, but numb and unfeeling. Up in her head, her brain sat spinning, engrossed in its own affairs. Time passed, hours went by. Through a thin web of half-waking dreams, she would hear the church clock. Then, suddenly, the warmth would come. It came like fever. She stretched her legs, and it was release from an instrument of torture. She relaxed her muscles as if after vigorous effort. She lay intoxicated and drifted into sleep. Okay, I love that passage, and now that I've just read it to you, I realize how much of a metaphor staying warm and finding a source of warmth and finding ways to deal with the cold. It's really a metaphor for poor Alberta's entire experience in this novel. She lives in a very cold household emotionally. Her father is a magistrate. Her mother is a housewife that is really controlling and has a very ridiculously dysfunctional relationship with her daughter, Alberta, and especially with her husband. The brother, Jacob, is the one who received the education. The parents never once thought of giving poor Alberta an education, and she craves knowledge. Jacob is a bit of a ne'er-do-well. He's adorable and lovable, but he doesn't want to become a magistrate or doesn't want to go into law or have that kind of a hoity-toity profession. He wants to be a sailor. So there's a lot of tension between him and his father, and Cora Sandel shows the dysfunctional family beautifully. These are not paper-thin characters. They're really deeply drawn, and there are no villains in this novel. I loved the characterization. It just truly was special. And poor Alberta she likes to take walks by herself and kind of use her imagination and ruminate on the books she secretly read until 2 a.m. the night before. She does have friends, but she's kind of the uncool friend, and Cora Sandel does a wonderful balancing act in not letting her friends, who on the surface are much more interesting than she is, outshine her. They do not outshine her. So that was a tremendous accomplishment, and I fell in love with young Alberta Selmer as she muddled her way through existence in this barren town where there are layers of social judgment upon layers of social judgment that she has to navigate. Her parents want her just to get married. She wants to, if not study, find a job and get away from home. That's all I'm going to say about the plot. But it's just a wonderfully rich read. I can't wait to read the rest of the trilogy. And Alberta Selmer is a character that's going to stay with me for a very long time. I will never forget her journey of finding ways to warm up her soul, her creativity, and her longings for independence. I just can't wait to see how she does that in the next 2 volumes. Cora Sandel is not somebody who is very well known in the West. I can't remember how I stumbled upon it. I think it was just some random tweet or something, and I ordered the set, and I'm so glad I did. This is one of my top reads, certainly of the Women in Translation Readathon, but perhaps of the year. I cannot recommend it to you highly enough. Alberta and Jacob by Cora Sandel. Thanks for watching.